Hi, my name's Benji, and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're bringing you an OCD Modern Deck Tech. So why OCD, you ask? Well, I find myself each and every time I build a deck that I place artificial rules and limitations on what's allowed. Sometimes in the pursuit of theme, sometimes just because of some strange compulsion, but always in pursuit of having the most fun playing the game, just like Johnny or Timmy would. However, it would be remiss of me not to give a nod to the spikes out there by retaining as much of a deck's competitiveness as possible. So let me ask you, did you like visiting the zoo as a child and wondering what would happen if those caged animals suddenly ran amok? And does bombarding the battlefield with a bunch of creatures from different backgrounds appeal to you? Then we're here with a deck for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Bred Naya Zoo. This is the ultimate fair deck in Modern and harks back in so many ways to the good old days of Magic. Yes, the format has moved on, but this type of deck lives on in spirit. So let's zoo this. I call this Bred Naya Zoo because we really are going that extra mile to prioritise a menagerie of zoo animals over non-creature spells. And we're also bringing what I call the Holy Trinity of one-drop Naya creatures. First up is a playset of the most powerful of these, Wild Nakatl. This warrior cat has spread its wings in other modern shells in recent times, and it's comical how easy it is to get this swinging in for 3 damage on turn 2. Next up is 4 copies of probably the most iconic zoo card of them all, Ape. You'll see all of our Holy Trinity represent one of each of the Naya colours. There was a time when this was a marauding wildebeest dominating opponents, but now the Kurd has to make do with being just another part of the larger pack. Rounding out the purebred cast is a playset of Lone Lion. Now I'm sorry, but this guy has received short shrift for long enough. Put simply, you can't have a Kurd ape without bringing along the lion. This has synergy and mediocrity for days, but will leave your opponent blinded by theme. So whilst those represent the core of pure Naya Zoo, there is very much an ensemble cast we're bringing along to join them. We start our 2-drop creatures with 4 copies of Burning Tree Emissary, for the primary reason that we want to be overloading the board with creatures, and this helps us do that. Yes, it's just a bear after it's done its thing, but chaining 2 of these and a couple of 1-drops all in one turn is extremely satisfying. Johnny gave this gal a waiver to appear so long as she plays the role of the zookeeper in our little story. Next up is a playset of Voice of Resurgence. This is just a ridiculously troublesome creature to deal with. Your opponent's going to be reticent to sling spells at this and or block it, as it's oh so likely going to bring something even more powerful back into the fray. So either way, this works well in getting some damage through to your opponent. Moving on to our 3-drops, we're bringing 4 copies of Gruul Spellbreaker. The right mechanic gives this guy a fair amount of flexibility on what we want out of him, having 3 strings to his bow, haste or a 4/4, as well as the hexproofness he brings, made this a preferred choice over something vanilla like Woolly Thopter. I think we'll go with this being the Burning Tree's brother from another mother. Yep, that sounds plausible. Wait, is this some kind of joke? 2 copies of Bloodbraid Elf is a step too bleeding far. We're now way outside the realms of zoology here. How are people going to accept that this is a pure zoo deck if you keep wheeling bipeds in? Putting our OCD aside, this deck really benefits from the berserking elf. We're not bringing a playset as we don't want to get flooded with her, but she's still a great magic card and works well here. Finally, we have a hybrid creature in the form of a playset of Gore Clan Rampager. Clearly the priority is for this beast to be used to pump one of our other creatures and give them trample, but in a push it can be cast as a naked 4/4 creature and can still do a job. Our non-creature package starts off with 2 copies of Domri, Chaosbringer. I really wanted to bring Vanilla Domri Raid as our groundskeeper, but I think the Chaosbringer's top 2 abilities gave this deck a little bit more staying power, and Riot is going to get quite a few of our 3 toughness creatures over the top. We then go full toolkit by bringing 4 copies of Ataka's Command. This synergises perfectly with a non-token go wide strategy, and whilst buffing your creatures and doing 3 face damage will be the go-to play, the life gain denial and land flopping abilities will on occasion come in handy too. There's just one spot left for non-lands, and we're using it to bring a playset of Rancor. Because this is a fair deck, and because the basic stats of most of our creatures don't set the world on fire, we do need the means within which to get through some vital damage, and Rancor is just an all-star in providing this outlet. So what lands are we bringing to let these wild creatures roam free? It's all important that we get early access to our shock lands, as this is the easiest way for us to switch on our triumvirate of 1-drops, and so we're bringing 2 copies of Stomping Ground, as green and red are our most popular list colour requirements. We're also bringing 1 copy of Temple Garden and 1 copy of Sacred Foundry. Remember that all of these act as either forests, mountains or plains, to cheat in our buffing conditions for the wild, curd, lions. We're of course going to need some fetch lands to enable us to pick and choose which of these shock lands we need depending on what's in our hand and what's on the battlefield. And so first up is 4 copies of Windswept Heath. This allows us to get our Stomping Grounds and Temple Gardens as well as basics if need be. However, our preferred fetch land is a playset of Wooded Foothills, as this allows us to fetch everything but the plains. With so much land hate and disruption in the format, basic lands can be very easily undervalued, but we're bringing 8 of them. Based on the colour chart of our main deck, first up is 4 dense forests. We're then bringing 3 high-peaked mountains, leaving room for just 1 sprawling plains. So that does it for our 60 card main deck. Let's talk sideboard. So the whole point of a sideboard is to tweak your deck to better combat the metagame at whatever level or wherever you're playing Magic. So in that spirit, whilst I'm going to give you a graphical overlay of how many of each card I think will bring good all-round options to combat any given meta, I'm not going to talk about these quantities in efforts to encourage you to assess the metagame wherever it is you play and build a sideboard accordingly. We've gone completely compulsive here by making sure all of our sideboard picks are placed on a stick. They still do the same job as their non-creature equivalents, but they're invariably just bringing the hate and meta opposition at a higher mana cost. First up is Gaddock Teague, a real good choice against decks like Tron and Storm, some control decks and a number of other archetypes. Kasali Pride Mage is an obvious choice to bring some artifact and enchantment removal, and the Exalted ability is just icing on the cake. Scavenging Ooze would be many people's main deck choice, and it is a great card, but I ultimately went with the choices that I did, as the Ooze can be brought in to be a real thorn in your opponent's side, and you're not going to be a sad panda if you need to build this in against graveyard interactive decks. Selfless Spirit is another excellent choice to deal with the threat of board clears. We really are looking to overcommit to the battlefield, so this will often come in handy. Kitchen Finks is just a fantastically resilient card that will help you deal with low-flying burn strategies and keep you topped up on life, allowing you to do the killing before you be the killing. Next up is Loxodon Smiter, 4/4 for 3 mana that punches control decks in the face and provides a nasty surprise to some of those discard decks. Check and check. Finally, we're bringing Magus of the Moon, aka Blood Moon on a stick. Yes, the ease with which this will get removed compared to its enchantment brother is a fair point, but I don't even make the rules, sorry. So those are my all-round sideboard picks, but here are some other considerations for you. However, if you're hankering for a slightly more conventional and balanced sideboard, you might want to consider the following. Both Stony Silence and Ancient Grudge are obvious choices against artifact based decks. Path to Exile is always an out if you need to quell a particularly troublesome creature, and Chain to the Rocks can also do a similar job. Destructive Revelry brings some artifact and enchantment removal with a little splash of burn. Deflecting Palm is another way to deal with a metric ton of damage coming from one source, and Rest in Peace is going to do some work for you against graveyard lovers. Blood Moon we've already mentioned, and finally Rending Volley is going to help us against Azorius based decks. So there you have it, the fairest of fair decks that's never going to be tier 1 but provides a ridiculous amount of fun and does a great job of turning creatures sideways. I'm pretty damn sure they're still good magic, right? However, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.